Hey guys, and welcome to the latest in the SleepyTalk podcast. Today we're going to be talking about
What go on when you die or after you die.
when you die, after you die.
Something, yeah, just something that involves what go on. So Luke don't want to say it.
Yeah, I just so we're going to be talking about sort of different theories on what happens when you die, after you die. We'll be covering everything from worms to Jesus. So there's going to be a lot of tangents. So as you sort of know, we're joined with that guy,
Yo,
Ryan Dreads Mango, and Stevie boy, Stevie Wonder.
Hello.
Hello. So, well, what happens after you die, Ryan? What happens after you die?
nobody knows. It's impossible to know. We all have to, if you need an answer, come up with your own, or take on an answer somebody's laid out for you. I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah. Steve,
Yeah.
what happens after you die?
I believe nothing, but that's me.
Okay. So I did do a tiny bit of research. What I was wanting to do for this sort of podcast was have like loads of discussions on stuff that we've sort of collected over our times and our experiences, just to see sort of where we all sort of lie when it comes to this. But there's a few, mainly Americans, that have died on either the operating table or had a cardiac arrest and then been brought back to life. Or resuscitated, blah blah blah, whichever one you want to say. There's quite a few that say that they go towards a light, but then blackness surrounds them, is like trying to grab them and go and like pull them into the darkness.
Okay.
So it's a freaky one, but this seems to steer people towards certain faiths. So I know with one, he said he knew full well that it was the devil that was dragging him back into the darkness for eternal torture, and that the light was either an angel or heaven or, God, Jesus, whichever deity he thought was going to save him. And then he got resuscitated. So he's now a devout Christian, devout, whichever one you want to say. Just from this experience. So I don't know if you've got any thoughts on that.
Maybe the light was them trying to bring him back to life, not an angel.
Could well be.
I mean, that bright light could just be those hospital lights. They're quite bright, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Could
them
be
trying to
that
bring him back.
the darkness could have been like his energy running out. Obviously, we know that energy
I've
can't
actually
be...
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt there. I was trying to do my sneaky thing where I sneak in, but you was leading on to something, so I'll wait.
No, go on.
Okay, I was gonna say I've as far as I'm aware, right? This is gonna sound odd, right? But as far as I'm aware, I've died. Like diabetes and me didn't get on too good when I was younger. I was diagnosed at 10, at like 14 stone due to round juice fruit pastels every day, and found it hard to pack them in, and in and out hospital countless times growing up. And as obviously I don't know what happened, all I remember is waking up in hospital. Apparently they had to like bring me back at one point. I remember throwing a fit saying I'm not going in the ambulance because that's what I was like as a kid when I was taking it down to diabetes. Next thing I wake up in hospital, my mom's in tears. Every doctors and everything, nurses and whatnot, are all rushing in and prodding me and doing all the... I don't know if anyone's been in any sort of intensive care sort of place in a hospital, but you wake up and they tend to do all sorts to you, medically, of course. And I remember just feeling like I've been asleep for a very long time. Like I've had the most amazing sort of quality of sleep I've ever had in my life, but somehow I'm still tired, if that makes any sense.
Makes sense, yeah.
That is the best way I can describe it. I found to describe it whenever telling that story in the past.
All right,
So
got
that
a
was
question
it.
to
Just-
that.
Go on.
Yeah.
then.
Before that all happened, can you remember what happened prior to it? Like within minutes or seconds, however long before that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit problematic because I like to talk and a lot of it's irrelevant. But I didn't like quite understand how serious diabetes was as a kid. So whenever my sugars were like, it's called DKA, diabetic. DKA is short for something that happens when basically the body starts producing these things that will kill you if you've got too much of them in your blood when you're a diabetic. And I pretty much like lived in that state as a kid because I refused to accept that, like, you know, diabetes was really a thing, because I'm still waking up and still doing my stuff. But it's not until these types of experiences that I begun, and this was I was probably like, what, I'd say about 14 when this happened. But I remember the not being well at all, knowing it was a diabetes, my parents, like, you know, effing and blinding at me about, we need to get to the hospital because they would have to take me and blah blah blah. And I was like, nope, not happening. No, actually, nah, I was over 16. I must have been over 16 because I was playing the whole, you can't make me do anything, I'm over 16. Nah. Got to the point where I'm in and out of consciousness. At one point, I remember waking up and there's two paramedics in my bedroom, my absolute pig shit sty of a fucking bedroom, and they've wired me up to drips and all sorts in my bedroom because I've refused to go, and every time they've tried to move me, I've sort of like started kicking and thrashing and stuff. But apparently that's a thing with diabetes. When it's not controlled well, when you're having these sort of bad spells, whether they're self-caused or not, your mood, you become very aggressive. It's a thing. That's why sometimes you get mistaken when your sugars are low for being drunk and whatnot, because your behaviors are very similar to somebody that's drunk or just incredibly angry and not able to be sort of coherent, if that makes sense. And I did that a lot as
makes
a kid.
sense.
Yeah, I did that a lot as a kid. Without getting to tiny violins, it's something that you struggle to sort of really comprehend and then accept at 10 years old when you didn't even know what it was before. But yeah, it led me into hospital. And like I say, all I remember is just waking up in that familiar surrounding, because I've been in many times before. The nurses knew me by name by this point and would just recognize me on sight. But for some reason, this time, just waking up there, I'd woken up there many times before, like I say, this time just felt very sort of unnerving. Like I knew something had happened. I'd missed something, but I didn't know what. And obviously I felt incredibly tired, but at the same time, like I'd been, maybe it's some sort of medication or something they'd given me, I don't know, that was making me feel like I'd been like, you know, in a really, like, I don't know, if you've ever had a really, really good night's sleep and you just wake up and you know that's a good night's sleep. Felt like that, but like times 10. But at the same time, I just didn't want to move. Like I just have no energy.
No, I understand. Only reason I was asking was I didn't nearly die, but I got run over. Went over the car, and in the process of that happening, you ever say the world flashes before your eyes? I had that sort of experience, so everything went into slow motion, and it was like a very quick, the whole of my life that I could remember, straight there in front of me, and then I was just laid out on the floor. I wondered if you had anything like that with possibly actually being dead.
No, I think that's I don't know, like with it getting in terms of like what happened to me, all I remember is refusing to go anywhere in my bedroom and then waking up in hospital. There was no light,
Right.
there was nothing mystical or anything in between that. As far as I know, it was like from one frame to the next. I was in my room.
Whereas mine were more like 10 frames, but super slow motion and fitting a lot of information into that one thing. Like I say, I didn't nearly die, anything like that. I was completely fine.
So
Just
you got
the
hit by a
whole
car?
world. Yeah. Car, well, MX-5 doing 30 odd mile an hour.
It went me, I swear.
Where was this? How was you on the pavement? Was you crossing a road?
I was crossing the road. He ran a red light.
Right.
I went straight over the car. Like I say, I felt it hit me. I went over the car. As I could still see everything. As I was spinning, everything was just like super slow, like point. I don't know. It was just slow.
So
But in the process of that happening, past say 10 years of my life, just like that, straight, just remembered everything.
So what I think.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm gonna say I've tried to jump in about 6 times. You two just keep talking.
It's your podcast. You get all the glory. Shut up. Let's talk.
It's my podcast. Shut the fuck. No. So what I think happens with how Steve just described it, how everything goes really slow motion, and he starts seeing everything from his life. The thing or the theory that I have on that is that you have such a quick adrenaline dump because it's a situation that you're not used to at all. Nobody like gets used to being hit by a car, and because it's such a new experience, that your brain goes into overdrive trying to think of a situation that you've experienced that in before and how to get out of it. So it's almost like
it's just trying to grab any information that might be there, and it's just throwing it around in hopes of finding
it's like
the right
a stimulus response on how do I survive this? How do I, stop this attack? Because obviously your brain, as much as it's smart, your brain obviously knows what a car is because you know what a car is, but in a sort of more primal instinct of where you have an adrenaline dump, you remember things like, if you'd had any
you're not yourself in those situations. You're not yourself in those situations. So your whole
ego,
your whole everything about you is just gone for those moments. It's nothing but
primal
neuro
instinct.
pathways. Yeah.
So
adrenaline.
at that point, your brain is trying to think of a situation that it's been in this situation before and how to get out of it. And I believe that's what it is when people have their whole life flash before their eyes. Is just a huge dump of whatever chemicals in your brain and adrenaline and whatever, trying to figure out a way to survive.
Sorry, do you recall any of the moments that flashed to you?
Not specifically. It was all that quick. It was like my whole life fast forward. Certain bits stood out. Nothing important, just conversations or that sort of stuff. Me doing.
You could pinpoint times that were flashed back to you. Now. So, and when you think back to this one's a bit different. When you think back to the actual accident, do you think in the first person, or are you observing yourself in that situation?
Observing.
It's funny that's weird because I've been hit by a car, and every time I cast my mind back, I'm always watching from the side of the road, but I was in the middle of the road.
Mine's slightly different. It's not from the side; it's from above.
Yeah, from a higher angle. Yeah. Mine's a slightly higher angle. Yeah. But it's from I was hit on a zebra crossing. I ran out across the zebra crossing I ran out of a shop and bang outside the shop, zebra crossing, bolted across.
What did you steal?
Nothing. It was just a local shop. It was a local shop. I was there with my sister and my brother.
What did they steal?
Nothing. It was just something I did. It was just something I even recall now. It was just something I always did because I was at that age. I think I was 6 and it's a zebra crossing. You're invincible on a zebra crossing. Cars can't touch you on a zebra crossing because they have to stop. Well, they have to try. And
that's exactly it.
But technically speaking, they only have to try and stop when you're on the crossing.
Well, I was hit on the crossing, so I must have been on the crossing. But But I have to admit, they didn't stand a chance stopping and from hitting me. But yeah, it's always mad when I think back. The moment after I'm hit and I sort of I'm becoming aware. I wasn't knocked unconscious or anything, so I was picked back up. But every time I think back, I always think back from a third person until the very instant the car hit me, and then from that instant it's first person.
It's really funny you say that. So I haven't been run over. I have been hit by a car, but it's really pathetic compared to your two stories. But I was doing a walk expedition thing for, I think it was Duke of Edinburgh. We ended up having to go onto a road. Well, Duke of Edinburgh, sorry, it was in college when I was doing public services. So we ended up having to go on this really long walk, and on the way back we had to go on the actual road, and there was a giant wall to sort of like the right. There wasn't a path, but as you know, when you're walking on a road and not on a path, you have to face oncoming traffic. That's just the highway code in the
Yep.
UK. I don't know what it is in anywhere else, but you have to face oncoming traffic. The problem is that this wall was that high and it was on a bend, so it was basically a blind corner. Now, I wasn't at the front at this. I was like at the back, but not the last person sort of thing on this walk. This sort of little Japanese style van, you know, the ones that the side doors open up and some people just leave them open while they're driving.
So tiki vans.
Yeah. So the wing mirror hit me in the shoulder, and then the open door hit me on the hand, and it sort of spun me, and I sort of fell on the floor, and everybody came over to see if I was all right, and then they all laughed because I was fine, and it just made a really loud noise, you know. But up until the point where I spin round, I'm looking at myself from behind the wall as if a wall doesn't exist. So my memory of it is observing it from behind myself. So
yeah,
very similar perception, but obviously not really as
I mean, this is all
dramatic as
leading
your
up to.
twos.
I was gonna say this is quite interesting. What's happened here? Because this was supposed to be about what going after you die, innit? But all we've come up to so far in it, you like it. You like the innits, don't you, bro?
He does.
Yeah, he gets wet for innits. All it's been so far is like the run. Well, again, we don't know what happens after, so I suppose that's the best we could do. But it's just been stories of the run up to death and what that's.
Could call it close encounters.
Yeah, I mean,
the
your
alien
brain
kind.
and to your body at the time, as far as it knows no better though, does it? The way your brain's reacting in those moments, as far as it knows, you are about to die, regardless of whether or not you do. It wasn't to know that. So
do you not think that your brain puts that in, so adds a memory? Because there's no way that it's important that your brain remembers something up until you have the accident. Your brain doesn't really remember crossing a road, like you said for the zebra crossing, Ryan. You did that every time you came out that shop.
Yeah.
So at that point, you're in ghost mode or autopilot. You've done that many times over and over again that you don't even think that you're doing it. I don't know whether Steve will have the same thing as what I do. When I used to drive to, because we don't drive anymore because we're in lockdown. When I used to drive to Worksop where I worked, I used to forget half my journey. It was only up until something had changed that I sort of remembered that I was driving. If that makes any sense. It's not that I've fallen asleep.
It does make sense.
I'm just on autopilot. And, you know, it's amazing because you go past like roundabouts and things like that, and traffic lights and crossroads and whatnot, and you just don't think. There's no thought process.
But it's like in a mad scale.
Yeah, but you've navigated yourself there fine. There's been no change to the stimulus other than probably like different coloured cars, but that's not really a problem to your brain or your receptors as a different colour car, because every time you drive, you see different cars. It's only if like there's a car that's broken down or there's somebody jumps out in front of you in the road, which I've had happen to me. I was in an MX-5. He was little and albino, and he went flying over the roof.
Don't what? Wait.
No, I'm joking.
Wait, I was gonna wait. You've got me in this story. I'm like, what? You hit a kid, albino? Wait, what did he say that? Or did I think he said that? Like,
no, I had to. There was a little kid that ran out in front of me. The bus that was in front of me, was pulling in, and I think she was late for a bus. So this kid, she must have been like 13, 14, senior school. She ran straight in front of my car. And that MX-5 was it was thankful it was such a light car, because the brakes that you get from, unless you upgrade the brakes, are not the best brakes in the world. So I slid for a little bit, but luckily she was fine and she didn't even apologize. Like I pipped, slammed my brakes on. She didn't even look. She had just had her
Just
headphones in.
carried
She
on and got
saw
in
the
a bus.
She just saw the bus go past and she just darted out in front. And I was
Jeez.
literally. It's a good job I weren't tailgating this bus because she'd have, well, mind you, she'd have probably ran into my wheel rather than anything. But no, it was just mad. But things like that, you then remember. Oh my god, I've gotten to this part. You know.
Yeah, and then
So
it
the
adds a
middle of the
marker.
journey. Yeah, the middle of the journey is autopilot, especially when you've done it enough. We've gone off on such a tangent.
Bruv, just let it carry on.
Just carry on.
Just carry on. Just at least
Just
finish your
going.
point, for God's
It's
sake.
fine.
Yeah. So we have
Ridiculous.
autopilot. So realistically, that's why I think, and that's my current theory. I've done a lot of theories today, of why we see ourselves in the third person when something like this happens.
Because that's pretty much what our brain's doing to try and analyze and figure it out.
Add in memories.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't need to remember the things that you do repeatedly.
Yeah.
It's already got that jigsaw puzzle. So
it's mad though, isn't it? Like, how could you see it in the third person when you didn't know if that's what it looked like? It's crazy.
Definitely brain making that part up. It knows we're surrounding it, knows what we're there. That's what that is.
Well, just to inject a little bit of humour, the person that ran me over was actually blind in one eye and had one leg shorter than the other. I am not shitting you. They shouldn't have been driving, obviously.
Trying to hold in a laugh.
Yeah, that's like for a bit. Yeah, I know. It's like I got run over by a half-blind peg leg. Like it's not even. That's legitimately what happened.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, Ryan, the person that ran me over was an ex-traffic cop.
Oh wow, Jesus!
Just retired.
I can see why he retired.
Yeah.
Just retired, gone bought a brand new car, and he was concentrating on the road everywhere else because he didn't want to damage it and hit me.
Fucking hell!
You are pretty small though, Steve. I'm surprised he could see you.
Oh, even smaller at 15.
Yeah, I say he's only about 4 foot tall, you know.
Oh,
yeah, I look like one of my kids, about 4 or 5 years old. That's what sort of height I were at that age.
You still look like one of your kids now, to be fair.
Hey, he's 13. He's nearly taller than me. Let's get over it.
He looks like one of your kids, Luke. What are you talking about?
And that's it for this podcast.
So, does anybody? What's either of your two's view on or belief, if anything? Like, I think Steve, you said nothing happens. You believe nothing.
Yeah,
so...
I don't want it to be nothing
Mm.
because I don't want to just exist in nothing after. But I don't think there is anything.
I think oxymoron's the word, isn't it? Exist in nothing.
You want something to be there, but you believe nothing is there.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
I really like the Avatar theory.
What's that one? Sorry, I don't know.
Go on.
So, you know, in Avatar, the film, not the anime, but the actual... James Cameron?
Oh,
the blue Navis. The Navi people.
Oh, thinking anime.
Yeah, and I realised that I'm in a podcast with weebs, so I should specify. So you know how they... I've forgotten the tree god that they worship or whatever, but everything in sort of the Avatar planet is all interconnected. They got them bendy-wendy, squiggly cables that they attach to each other and stuff, don't they? But then they attach it to the tree, and when that chick is dying, what's her name? Oh, the one who's like famous for being an alien.
I haven't seen.
Oh, the scientist.
Yeah, the woman.
Science lady. Just refer to
Yeah,
her.
The original
science lady.
alien.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean, but I don't know her name.
People are gonna shit on us if we don't get that. Let me
Google it. Okay.
Get it googled.
Alien. Directed by Ridley Scott. Cast. I don't want what?
What?
What? Is it Sigourney Weaver? It is Sigourney Weaver.
That's it, yeah. Sigourney Weaver.
Yeah,
I just checked
Sigourney
her
Weaver.
avatar.
Yeah, so when Sigourney Weaver dies, they put her in front of this tree, and they were going to transfer her into her avatar.
Okay.
That's right, yeah.
She died before that could happen, but they said that she'd gone to live with the tree god, and that was sort of like, so her sort of path through was her consciousness went back into sort of like nature with this tree goddess,
The
deity,
live
whatever.
stream from Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
the life tree, isn't it?
Yeah, the life tree, and that was it, and that's their sort of deity, religion, faith. So obviously, when the main character then decides that he doesn't want to be a cripple anymore and wants to be put into his avatar permanently after they've finished the fight and sent the nasty humans away, he goes through, sees this life tree deity thing, and then wakes up in his avatar. Obviously, Sigourney Weaver didn't get that chance because she died before the process could be complete, or she was too far gone, etc., etc. Not really important, but I like the theory that we go back into nature and it's like Mother Nature that's the actual
Yeah, it's a bit
god.
like it's like Buddhism, that. Is it Buddhism? Sort of thing.
I think it's
Buddhism's
Buddhism where
reincarnation, isn't it?
Yeah, reincarnation, where you come back as
another being based on how good a life you led. I mean, that is probably that's a physical sort of afterlife, I imagine, because that it makes sense. Like, we die and we bury our dead, and then we return to the earth. We then nourish the earth to grow new things. Perhaps some of you say, if a plant is grown from some of the soil that your corpse has nourished somehow, is any part of you then in that tree? I mean, it's the consciousness in it that we don't quite understand or get in that theory. If we could sort of place our consciousness in things grown from the earth, I did say that would be a widely accepted sort of standard belief of what happens after you die.
So haven't we ruined that then already?
What do you mean?
We're buried in caskets that last lifetimes.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't actually go back into the earth.
This
And
is
we burn
something that we've effed up on. Even when you burn each other, like, you still can return to the earth and help grow new life.
Oh yeah, but how many people, when they're burnt, just go into a shell, basically, urn, yeah. That's got no chance of doing anything, man.
Of course, yeah. Sat there on your fireplace. So weird, in my opinion. Sorry.
I'm sure there's biodegradable caskets now, and you can have like plants planted in you or on you.
They probably.
I know there's a urn one which you can do that way. It comes with a tree sapling.
I mean, the way I look at it is the way that nature would have dictated it. I mean, death is a part of nature. You just can't avoid it. And nature never would have intended for us to put ourselves in caskets, especially not like the type that we do with all metal and stuff on them anyway. Geez, maybe
nature just have us laid there for everyone to
maybe
see.
buried. I mean, you see wild animals like bury the dead, so I don't understand why that we wouldn't perhaps practice that as well. If that seems to me like something that nature would have sort of instilled in us, to bury our dead or burn them. I feel that's something that would have came to us naturally, but building boxes to put them in and all the ceremony that goes along with it as well is something that's completely man-made and gets in the way of that cycle. That perhaps it makes sense for that cycle to be, isn't it, really? I mean, it's what happens in all our parts of nature pretty much, other than where man gets involved.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So it's yeah, I mean, I've kind of put a depressing twist on a theory that I actually enjoyed. But I think when it comes
still
to death,
happens on a basis. They don't have to be that upset, because we still do get those coffins still do get broken down, bro. just takes longer.
Just
and
takes a lot
maybe
longer,
a little
yeah.
bit more poison is absorbed in with your corpse into, from those metals and whatever else is in there. But it still happens, so you don't need to be as depressed as you was going to be. Just half as much.
We've got the zombie apocalypse in 2412 to look forward to anyway. So
2412, where's that come from?
I just made it
Is
up,
that a
mate.
thing, or just make it up?
Just made it up.
Oh, right. I was gonna say, is this like a Mayan thing again? Like, don't start 2012 all over. I missed it this time.
2412, yeah. The zombie apocalypse, we'll be fine. We'll meet up again and do a zombie cast or something.
Perhaps by that time we would have learned how to transfer a consciousness into other things, and be alive then. Perhaps, I don't know. What's that movie that does that? Asylum, the
Elysium.
Elysium. Yeah, they do that stuff.
But he doesn't transfer his consciousness, does he? He transfers. No, Elysium. He puts loads of exoskeletons on him.
Oh, which is the one where they go into space? And no, it's the girl that has to like kill the person before he uploads his consciousness to the satellite.
Yeah.
What's that one?
Yeah.
Is that the same film?
It might be the same film, yeah.
I think so.
No,
yeah.
no, was it?
I feel like it was like a mission trying to kill this guy before he did it, and it was all.
Well, it was to do with Medicare, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, so all these films, these
to...
sort of future dystopian films, they all just are the same film to me.
Yeah.
One of the 3 boobs are in this one as well. I don't know if that's the case, really, but yeah.
I don't even know what you're on about.
Total Recall, I think, was the 3 boobs one.
Yeah,
It's all the same
the
film. Elysium, Total Recall, so future technology. The rich have left us. That's basically all like a damn
The
Freemasons.
Fourth Kind. The Fourth Kind was another one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but tangent.
Digression. Oh yes. So I find it hard to believe that you can believe. I don't want to like start causing offense if that's what I'm about to do. It's not intended.
If it's to me, it won't cause offense. I'm friends with Luke.
I can't imagine just like just thinking nothing happens. My brain just won't allow, like, obviously it's going to come up with something to fill that empty gap of just like, what is that? Just blackness, just a white. I don't know.
Just black, white,
peace.
Yeah.
Just for there to be that, there's still got to be some sort of consciousness to experience that nothingness.
I suppose, right, so energy can't be destroyed or created, can only be changed, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So, physics 101. So, your energy will deplete from your body into something else. So, your heart stops beating. That's a lot of kinetic energy that's just stopped all of a sudden. So, it has to transfer into something else. It has to go somewhere. It could be heat. It could be loads of different things. The electrons and shit can fly off in all different directions and whatnot. So maybe your consciousness slowly depletes, and that's where you get your peace. So your consciousness is still there. So the brain doesn't die when the heart stops. I think you're clinically dead when your heart stops, but your brain is still active and still has enough oxygen in it to keep doing certain things. And they say euphoria is what happens when your brain knows that it's time to die, and it releases a crap ton of chemicals into your system, which is euphoria. It's meant to be the greatest feeling in the world just before you die. Just that last little thing of, this is how fun life can be, and then you're dead.
That final shit that you take.
Yeah. So that's that
literally
huge,
that final shit.
Yeah, it's the best. That's the best moment ever.
Yeah. That huge dump of chemicals and things creates off loads of different reactions, and then it starts your body going into its death state, which your body doesn't stop doing functions after you're dead. It's just your consciousness is gone and your blood stopped pumping around. Your body will still try and push out a lot of crap, literal crap, out of your system. Gas will start building up, and then it'll be released, and flatulently you will carry on doing the same process, but that doesn't require
that's just gas is trying to escape, innit? From one way out.
Pretty much. But
So yeah, that's
so
the physical side of it. I'm
mhm,
very interested in sort of the, I don't know what to call it. Would you say the spiritual side, the conscious side of that consciousness is depleting? That's the bit I struggle um, to come to terms with.
hmm.
I
So
This is where my probably beliefs for what happens after you die. So a good place to pop those in is that consciousness is still there, but it's now experiencing something beyond our current sort of capabilities that
mhm,
is just what I like to believe would be completely and utterly beyond our current comprehension.
mhm,
Um, those extra, that extra light we can't see, that extra sound we can't hear, everything that is beyond our current scope is now within our scope. But a higher plane of existence or another plane of existence per se. So we're still about maybe in the same place in space and time, but our the information, what like our brain just takes light and does stuff with it and makes us think, okay, I'm looking at a cup, so that's a cup. We don't know if that's actually a cup. We just know that's what our brain is telling us is, and it looks like that. But for all you know, it could be something different. It's that, but all over again. You have to just relearn your comprehension of everything around you all over again. And the heaven and hell side of things, or the good ending and the bad ending, or place to go or bad place to go thing, comes into your state of mind as you become part of that higher plane, or that separate plane rather. Higher plane seems a bit arrogant in it, really seems like you're looking down on the current state or anybody that doesn't believe this. So if you're scared and nervous and not prepared for what there is after you die, where your consciousness goes afterwards, you are going to be on edge with everything that you come across in this new plane of existence. Everything's going to scare you. That sounds a bit like a hell to me. Whereas if you're comfortable with it, you're ready to accept it, you're ready to embrace this new life, for this new comprehension, if you want to call it that. And it is everything there is. It just depends on what you think of the nature of our universe really is. I like to think the nature of our universe, before any intervention comes in or any sort of manipulation comes in, is a very good place and a very lovely place, and we can actually experience that in its fullest, but only after we get rid of all of the things that stop us from experiencing that in our current state, if that makes any
hmm.
sense.
Yeah. So
So
we've got to think of your theory as like a trival. So there's
mm,
a plane of existence. Let's say we're not on the bottom. We're three-dimensional beings, and we view life in 3 dimensions. Sometimes 2, but paper, etc.
mm.
But physically, everything around us is in a 3rd dimension,
We can't
other than
experience
things that we
anything in
create.
our actual tangible world in a second dimension, can we? Everything to some sort of degree is third dimensional, even
Everything,
paper.
yeah. If we zoom in enough, then yes, it is 3 dimensional. Even doing a drawing of a stick man in 2D would still be 3D at a certain level.
Mm.
Obviously, that's different on screens, but we'll ignore that. So, let's say we're in the 3rd dimension. We've already lived through the 2nd dimension, and then our brain is reset when we've gone into the 3rd dimension so that we can comprehend the 3rd dimension. So, is there
Yes.
a 4th dimension that we go into? So, the next layer of the trifle?
Do you know what's quite funny? What you've just said there has made something that I came across as a child and didn't understand sort of make sense to me. Um, my stepdad has a certain sort of set of beliefs,
Mm-hmm.
and he would quite often be listening to or watching videos and tapes and CDs of stuff of people preaching or just talking about his culture and his beliefs. And at one point I came across a speech. He was listening to a speech of a guy who was just talking when we are ill, our body does certain things to protect itself, which we understand, like releases chemicals and whatnot. And what we're experiencing right now is something that our brain is feeding to us because it's terrible out there. And what you just said just brought that back to mind, because up until that point it was all just gibberish. I was just like, it's just a guy talking preachy talk, you know, white robe in front of a bunch of people, just listening to his every word, just like, you know what I mean, even though it wasn't any sort of Western sort of culture or belief system, it still looked the same on its surface to me. It's just like, why do you speak so ill of these people when the old people are just doing the exact same thing but just sound a bit different when they're talking about it? But yeah, that's probably ties into, that's what it means. Like, so something horrible is going off, and he was talking about when you reawaken, you're going to reawaken your true self. You've just got to just be prepared to reawaken when the time comes, and blah 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 blah. And maybe that's what he was referring to, wherever that theory you just spoke of came from, or if you came up with it, maybe he heard it from you as well when I was a child.
No, I was just trying to make sense of what you were saying,
Yeah.
and then relay it.
Maybe that fed into my belief system a bit, because I mean, my stepdad, he follows Rasta, and that is a big influence on, not the only, but it is a big influence on my, I'm gonna call it faith. I don't like to call it a faith, but I do have a faith. I have a belief system that helps me cope with just the world. That's influenced by many things, and Rasta is one of those. And it was, I can't remember who it was and what it was referring to, but there's just lots of videos of him talking about that sort of spiritual stuff. But I think religion has played a major part on why we fear death. I can't think of anything that wasn't stemmed in some sort of religious belief that he would give us any idea of, or make us think that there's anything to be scared of in death. So the only things, like hell is what we're scared of, basically, and that's a very religious thing. And also there's many other religions and you know, belief systems similar to religions, if we, you know, don't want to call it anything. But if there wasn't any of those bad after death places or experiences, would we fear death?
Yes, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
The whole natural ecosystem is predator and prey. If prey didn't fear death, they wouldn't run away from predators. They wouldn't have their fight or flight sort of natural instinct to run away when something's chasing them. Think of a cat and a mouse. A mouse won't just walk out in front of a cat, think, oh, I'm going to die. And then that's the only thought process that they get. I think the problem is that we've constructed society around certain ideas and theories and that have no sort of like credible value, I'll say, and I'm going to offend a lot of people when I say that.
So carry on. Sorry, I'm going to note this down.
So there's no sort of like credible value. Maybe somebody's experienced something that they can't explain, and then they instantly make connections in their head, exactly the way that we've done on this podcast. We've been making connections with certain things and come up with theories. It doesn't mean it's true. It just means that's where our brain has led us down this certain rabbit hole. But when you add in extra things like heaven and hell and, you know, extra scary things on top of an already scary natural instinct, which is, I'm going to die, I don't want to be eaten, run away. And then you've got like...
That's what I was getting at. I can't really talk for what it's like for animals, but I notice a majority of humans that I talk to about death, they're scared of death, not the thing that brings them the death, which is the actual thing to be scared of. Nobody's scared of getting harmed. Nobody's scared of actually like, I just don't want to die. It's not, I don't want to die by getting hit by a car. I don't want to die by getting stabbed. I don't want to die by this or that. It's just, I just don't want to die. That's the bit that they're scared of, and that's what I don't get, because most people, that, you know, general consensus is, like as Steve says, it's just nothing. So what is unknown? There is nothing to be unknown, because there is nothing to know after that point. So you can't be scared of the unknown, because unless you genuinely don't believe, there is nothing afterwards. And that's sort of, I was there at one point, there's nothing afterwards, but I fear beyond that nothingness. Well, if there is nothingness, there's nothing to be scared of, so there must be something there, and that's something that is natural for most people. I found they're scared of something that they believe isn't there, which says to me, within ourselves, something instinctively knows there is something there. We just don't know what that is.
I just think because we're top of the food chain, and obviously people do still get killed by things, and people still get killed by other people, but it's not an everyday occurrence. We don't go outside and fear that a predator is going to take us out. So we filled that void, the void that we had
You
initially.
never lived in Nottingham, did you?
You are?
You never lived in Nottingham, did you?
No, I didn't.
Live
but you know what I mean, though. It's still you survived. You know, it's not a common occurrence in our society. We'll say Nottingham doesn't count, but in our society, we don't go outside and think, "I'm going to get killed by a predator," or "I'm going to get knifed to death or shot," or
shit over.
You know, I don't live down in ends. You know,
you could tell from the way you said that.
Yeah. But yeah, so we've packed in all these different sort of scenarios and feelings and fears and thoughts and ideas and imaginative. You know, I'm going off now, but imagination and things like that. We've packed them all in, and then eventually that's evolved into, well, this could happen after you die. This could happen after you die. This could. A mouse isn't going to think what happens when I die. A mouse is going to think, I'm going to try and not get killed by a cat today, because
that's what it's fear. Yeah, that's the fear, though, isn't it? Really, for an animal.
Fear.
But we don't have that fear anymore. We don't have that natural fear anymore. So what I'm saying is that we've filled that void with other things, and that's why it's different.
I like to think that void has been filled by things purposely to create a fear, to create a religion, to create belief systems for control. So for whatever reason, those systems were brought into place for what control was the only reason I can think these sort of systems will come into place. I don't think that we naturally. Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. Freemasons. Thank you for bringing that. Freemasons. I'm on to you guys. Trust me. So, do you remember the Dirty Sanchez guys?
Yes.
Ever watched that? So they did this thing where they went around the world trying all these different drugs and just filming it or whatever. And they went to the rainforest and they tried the ayahuasca tea. And obviously they were doing it for the trip, but I was watching this episode and they were talking to the people, and well, this is what the translator was saying, this is what the subtitles read, so they give it to their elderly to get them comfortable with the idea of death. And if you the research on DMT suggests it helps you experience, you know, more of what's out there. If that's what happens after you die and you need to get used to that, and that's what DMT gives you, of course you're going to give it to your old, so they get used to that, so they go, which ties back into my belief on, if you die comfortable with the idea of death, you're going to go into a good place. Well, you're going to go to the same place, it's just your perception of it's going to be different. You're either going to enjoy it or not. And that's what the ayahuasca sort of tea is used for, so it encourages them to be comfortable with it, and before they pass on, it's not so unknown, because we fear the unknown, and fear is going to bring you to the hell. That's what's stapled in that sort of belief to me. With me is watching that episode, I was like, okay, cool. It's down to your perception of, or your perception of what's going on around you. Is the heaven or hell? But what's around you is the same for everybody in that plane.
Joe Rogan said that when he took DMT, his whole ethos on life completely changed. His whole perception of everything kind of changed from that moment. So when's Nat gonna sponsor us to go to this place and have some tea?
Yeah. Quite thirsty.
It depends on what sort of DMT you're saying. I mean, so yeah, from my understanding of it, there's you get different kinds of DMT, and the one that is more accessible is referred to as the spirit particle, and the one that is for all of the spiritual goodness and higher plane being stuff is the God particle. And a lot of people are it's becoming more and more accessible apparently, and more people are becoming woke from trying DMT, but it's in fact the spirit particle that they're taking, and that just sort of cartoonizes your world for a brief time according to, you know, what is said to do. But the God particle, which is the one that is usually only naturally accessible. The rainforest, the people in the rainforest give it to their elders to make them more comfortable with the idea of death, because it gives them an opportunity to experience what death is going to be like. It expands their senses, and I like to believe, much like these people, when you die, you're just going into another restart, like you mentioned earlier, Sleepy. But in this version of the world you're going to be part of, or this version of comprehension you're going to be part of, is full of every color rather than just the colors that you can witness now as a human being in this plane of existence. But you know, that is going to be scary, isn't it? So to get you used to it, so you don't spaz out when you first get there, take some DMT, go on a nice trip a couple times. So when you're there, you know, Wagwan, you know, what did we decide to say at the start? You know, Wagwan when you die, innit? Yeah.
So clearly, like, I know it's a meme at this point, but Nat's got to sponsor us at least one time. We've given so many shout outs.
What do you want to
Let's go get some DMT.
Nah, bro. No. Where is it? It's the Amazon, isn't it? They take that.
Yeah, she can send us out there. Surely.
Why? What do you think? How much money do you think is in vape, bro?
It doesn't matter how much money's in vape. How much have I plugged the e-cig store? Go to UK.
Yeah, but I mean, you know what? I'm going to set you up with a discount code, right? Just to put an end to this. And I can see exactly how many times a discount code is used. If we get 10 uses of a discount code, then I'll have a word in that about sponsorship. But not going to no rainforest, like, I don't know, a drink up once lockdown's finished. We'll start off small. You get me?
No, I get you. Right, so discount code will be...
we'll have it sorted out by the next one.
We'll
have it...
We'll put it
announce it in the next one. We'll put it in the next one because I'll probably forget to set it up. So give me a week.
All right.
Yeah,
I'll take you up on that.
No, definitely will happen.
Yeah, we get in 10.
Okay, 10 orders
just from Luke.
Yeah.
There's not going to be a discount. It's just a code, just to show that you came through. It's a referral code. Okay, now I'll give you 5% off, but don't forget Dreads gives you 13% off. So yeah.
But if you combine the two, that's 18% off.
Sleepy Dreads, oi.
No, all fun and games though. But
do you have anything that you believe yourself? Because I'm interested in that happens after death.
Me, I'm kind of like on the same thing as Steve, but it's not through belief. It's more of a fear. I'd say I'd hate for sort of like me to die and then there be nothing after that. Like, but that's what I kind of believe happens, but I don't want it to be that way. But logically, I'm not going to think that it's going to be anything different just because I want it to be something different. I kind of feel like we either go back into nature and our energy goes off in different directions. And the whole purpose of life is to procreate. And I've done my bit already. I've passed on my genetics. That's it. The species is going to live for another generation. Kind of thing.
I think that is the purpose of this stage of existence. It's just to procreate, to keep this planet moving. Without humans, the planet would die, just like every other thing that reproduces on this earth. It's needed for some reason to keep the planet itself alive. So I think that's our mission for the however number of years we're here.
And like we were saying, in death, even we provide life.
Yeah, still.
The nutrients and everything else.
Yeah,
I honestly think that we, as a species, have probably gone too far in the procreation and the taking.
We've messed up with this cycle that was supposed to be. I mean, we're getting more and more people. Like, look at me, I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at 10 years old. Like, when I was diagnosed, they were like, damn, this is ridiculously young. This is like an old person's like disease. What's going on here? And now, you know, my partner's 3-year-old's type 1 diabetic, and the hospital just knows what to do when this happens now. Like, they were dumbfounded by me, and now it's just like, yeah, it happens. Is that not, you know, if that's naturally occurring, they don't know, you know, there's no answer to these things. There's no clear answer to these types of diseases and autoimmune deficiencies and whatever. I just think it's just nature saying, look, you guys need to curb it. Like, it's standard.
Yeah,
The next thing is to start chucking natural disasters at us.
yeah, we've gone past the survival of the fittest stage. That's the first mistake that we did.
Well,
And
we
I
keep
say
our
mistake as a
keep our,
species. That's the first mistake.
yeah. I mean, we keep our ill alive, and we prolong their life. We're the only living things with any sort of intelligence, really, that does that.
But I'd
Like,
never change that system that we have now. I couldn't bring myself to change it. I've got too much of a conscience.
yeah,
But
no,
I
but
can.
say 100 years from now, it's going to be some next extreme, like where you're literally keeping people alive, like with just for your own benefit, or they're not, they're just a shell, they're a potato, but they're at least alive, for want of better wording, not to cause
We
any
do that
offense.
now.
Yeah, I
But
could say we do
it'll
that
be
now with people
like,
with dementia and Alzheimer's, things
Mhm.
like that.
do that now, but I reckon like in years from now, there's going to be the technology to give them the ability to communicate from that state, and to actually perhaps take part in some sort of life in that state. And this is where it's that sort of behavior that the problem is. Like you say, like, I wouldn't change it now, but maybe 100 years ago, when it wasn't as advanced and the way it is now, they would have said, no, this is the right way, and I wouldn't change it at all from now anymore, from here, because I mean, your standards adjust with time.
I mean, I
Don't
wouldn't stop it. I wouldn't cease it. The progression of thing is obvious.
Yeah.
What I mean is, I don't mean I wouldn't change it for the better. What I mean is, I think that we made a mistake as a species, not as a society, but as a species. The mistakes were made in which we're keeping people alive longer, and we're saving certain people that should be dead, and they're living on to do whatever. There's a reason
Breed
that
more bloody type 1 diabetics, Ryan. God damn it.
Well, that's it though.
Yeah, exactly.
That's it. If it's genetic,
Yeah.
and this is, I'm not trying to offend anyone or say anyone's wrong in having children or having a life and things like that. I'm just saying, as a species, if you look into nature, things that have autoimmune deficiencies or aren't strong enough to survive, they die. They don't pass on any genetics. The problem, and I'll quote that because I think that society as a whole is great. I love being alive, blah blah blah. The problem is that we've kept people alive. They've then had children, given these genetic things passed on, and they become watered down, but they still get passed on. And every couple of generations, you might have someone that has something chronically wrong with them and probably doesn't make it past their 20s. Like, I know someone that I know, I'm not going to name it, whatever, their kid is probably not going to go past 16. They've got a muscular dystrophy. And it's really sad, but that's a genetic thing that's just popped up out of like a few generations.
You want to nip that in the bud.
You do, but it's horrible because obviously they've got siblings, so they could carry that genetic condition.
But that's not a global perspective, though, is it? We're talking about a global problem from a very personal perspective. It's not fair to look at it like that. I mean, I understand, because we're human beings, and we're by nature quite compassionate to other human beings. But it's gotten to a point where logic has been forgotten in the name of not being hated on the internet, probably. Like, you can't be seen to be saying things like, you shouldn't really, okay, my ideal world is, if somebody like me, a type 1 diabetic, would look at their age, their ability, what they're able to contribute to society, and weigh that up against what the cost of the fucking insulin is. Now, if what you're contributing doesn't look like it's going to be able to come up, like, meet the cost, then sorry, mate, like, we'll make it as comfortable as we possibly can, but we're not gonna, you know what I mean? And if you are gonna stay about and contribute and stuff, like, if you can, work, pay taxes and whatever, blah 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 blah, we've got to make sure you can't have no kiddies. So snip snip. That seems to be the smartest way about it to me. You know what I mean? There's a little bit of compassion in there, like, not just leaving you out in the lurch because you're old and have diabetic, you don't have much working life left in you. So we'll make it as comfortable for you as possible. But if you are, we can't keep this problem going on, or we got to do what we can to try and prevent this problem going on from our current level of understanding. So you can't procreate, bro.
But again, that's where you get the elitism coming out, and they then start changing the rules and changing. Look at Man of Steel for a perfect example. Is it the I'm sure it's called the Cryptarch. The thing that Superman had infused into him as a baby. The Codex, not the Cryptarch, Codex. Because there wasn't a natural birth on Krypton for centuries up until Kal-El, Clark Kent, blah blah blah. Because they were genetically choosing people and putting them into roles. That's the slippery slope that I think you're going down.
It's
with
not, yeah. I mean, I'm not. No, that's there's no slope. I'm on level ground, bro. That's how it would be. I'm not saying like and then
it becomes very quickly a slippery slope.
Yeah, not if I'm in control. This is my ideal world, brother. In my ideal world, what I say goes. Unfortunately,
so Ryan's
in my own ideal world, you know what I'm saying? Like, I contribute enough. I got another 15, 20 years until they're gonna until I'm not value for money anymore, bro. Trust me.
I'd be dead already. I wouldn't even be here.
Yeah, standard. Like, I probably would have not made it like past 10 years old, because you're just a kid. Like, you can't contribute much other than chasing down the milkman and that. Like, so yeah, off your Todd, you little obese roly-poly kid.
Right, we have gone on the biggest tangent I've
we started
ever
off on death, and
now we're talking about killing people,
killing diabetics.
So I'm gonna close this one, and do you know what? It's been nice to just talk, and not have, a specific thing to talk about. It's been nice to just have a chat and realize that Ryan is a sociopath.
What do you mean?
He wants to kill all the insulin
I am not a sociopath.
Takers.
What do you mean, bro? I'm just logical, bro. I'm just very
And there'll be a
little.
discount code in the next episode.
It needs to be. You have to keep nagging me for that. If you'd like to hear more podcasts like this, then don't forget to leave a like and hit the subscribe button if you haven't done already. I got to practice, I know.
And check out Judge Mango.